a riddle, but you haven't told me the answer. Okay. Who did he give the riddle to? She said, my people. See, and their marriage didn't last long. I mean, they're still at the feast, okay? She never goes home with him. But can you imagine some problems down the road if she's, you have given a riddle to my people. They're not your people. And they're not going to be your people. My people. But you haven't told me the answer. And he says in defense, honey, I haven't explained it to my father and mother, so why should I explain it to you? Well, she cried the more. She cried the whole 7 days of the feast, so on the seventh day he finally told her because she continued to press him. She in turn explained the riddle to her people. Before sunset on the seventh day, the men of the town said to him, what is sweeter than honey? Everybody knows that, right? Since we've been told. What is stronger than a lion? Samson said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. What does Samson's remark to them tell us about the character of Samson? Additionally,
has some humor.
He has some humor, and I was looking for something a little more deep, brother.
I've called heifers before.
Or worse, but that doesn't make it right, does it? And it doesn't show respect if he's going to take this woman. If she looks good to me, David, if she looks good to me, and I want her for my wife, he doesn't show a lot of respect for her, does he? No. I don't know outside the Bible. It's one of those things that's in the Bible, and then you learn it growing up, you hear it growing up. Brother David introduced me to a phrase that I don't recall ever hearing before earlier. Something about, I'm not going to chew you gum for you, right? If you have, okay. I said, that must be, that could be a thing from up north. Down in South Alabama, I don't remember hearing that in all my years of growing up, okay? But about the gum, that is. Okay, plowed with my heifer? Yes. Okay, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. So, who got played in this situation? They played the wife. The wife in turn played Samson, and Samson got played. Okay? All because he is smarter than the folks that he's around, and he's giving them a riddle that they can't answer, but he makes a bet that's going to be difficult to deal with.
But it reveals the character of the Philistines as well.
Theirs was not so good to begin with, was it? But it does. It does. Well, we'll burn your house down with you in it. Growing up down in South Alabama, I knew a man who allegedly burned the house down with a man in it, I think because they'd had words. The man died in the house. He was like those folks up on the streets in New York City. I don't recall that he was ever charged with it because they couldn't prove it. Okay. But, yes, this tells us about the character of these folks. If you're looking for good character in this story, keep looking. Okay? Just keep looking. Right on here with David. Right on a very mature way. But again, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of everything, and gave their clothes to those who had explained the riddle. Burning with anger, he returned to his father's home, and Samson's wife was given to one of his companions who had attended him at the feast. Who was the winner in this whole story? There is a winner. Now, God will use wicked men or foolish men to accomplish his purposes. But who's the winner here?
would say Samson's companion, but I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah. She got hooked up with one of the groomsmen, if you will, one of the men there with him. All right, okay. All right. Who was the winner?
God's getting his goal.
He is. Okay. In terms of the human interaction, I'd say Satan comes out the winner. And when we don't follow God's purposes, and he'll use you anyway, he'll use wicked men to accomplish his purpose. And he has throughout history. And he still does, by the way. But Samson was not the winner. He goes home without a bride. I'm not, my money's not on that being a good long-term marriage. If the girl had gone home with him, woman had gone home with him. And if we look back at the map, he went down to Ashkelon. That was a pretty good journey to find 30 of those Philistines and strike them. I think kill them, take their clothes and bring them back and give them to the wedding party, the men at the wedding party. Burning with anger. There are two kinds of anger, right? At least. What are they? Righteous anger. Okay. Our Lord showed righteous anger on more than one occasion. Okay. And then there's the other kind, which sometimes is characteristic of us. It's certainly characteristic of him. Burning with anger. Now, what is he mad about?
That he got played.
He got played. Okay. He got played. Leaves a kind of a sour taste, doesn't it, when you've been played, whether you're foolish or not. Sometimes the best of us can be played. There's some real cons out there. Okay. Now,
in a way, it's kind of funny to say he got played because he's the one that told his wife. He got nagged.
He walked right into that one, didn't he? He got nagged and walked right into it.
He also started it with a riddle that was impossible to answer.
That's right. Foolish. They were foolish to take the bait. He was foolish to offer it. Okay, so what do we see in these two chapters? Of course, we don't get to Samson until the second of the two that we've looked at this evening. But what do we see about a young man who was born out of season? I would say a miraculous birth, okay? Dedicated as a Nazarite from his birth, dedicated for a purpose. Did his parents, like I said, did his parents remember the purpose, or did they just remember, well, we're supposed to raise him as a Nazarite? That didn't work out real good. But sunshine, if you will, Samson, with the highest calling you can imagine back in that day, and with God empowering him to accomplish his purposes, so far has shown himself to be headstrong, maybe lustful, arrogant, unwise and arrogant. Okay. Now, what has God called us to do? Well, let's get down, as Brother William Ward used to say, let's put the corn down, where the cows can get to it. We be the cows, we the students. What is God called?
Are you calling us heifers?
Didn't say that, brother. Didn't say that. Okay. Brother Ward's gone on to his reward, and I thought the very world of him. He was an elder down at Evergreen where I grew up. But he was fond of saying, let's not make God's word more complicated than it is. Okay? All right. So what's our takeaway? What has God called each of us to do? He's called us. He's called us through Christ. The highest calling that anyone on this earth can answer is the calling of Jesus Christ. What has he called us to? Do we recognize our calling? Do we go about trying to fulfill, not the Nazarite vow? None of us, I suppose, was called to that. Okay? But God has called each of us. Are we going to be Samsons? Or Or are we going to answer God's calling and use the abilities? He may never work in us as he worked in Samson in these 2 chapters we've looked at tonight. But he has called each of us. We have a calling, we have a following, if you will. That is to follow Jesus. And what are we doing? How are we answering to God for the calling that we have? What are some things that can get in our way of our calling? We've looked at. There are others.
Our ego.
Right on. It's all about my mother. Well, that was Freud. Okay. I'm sorry. Our egos can get in the way. Okay. Have you ever been wrong and you realize you were wrong, but you didn't really want to admit it? I'm coming in with extra syllables. Have you ever went down the wrong path to a certain point and you had someone to bring you, as we're to do with each other? And I ask this, and we should each ask this, and we should be much more forthcoming, if you will, in accepting righteous criticism, exhortation, and we should develop relationships such that when we need to be the one to carry the hard news, that it might just be received. Okay? What else gets in our way? Our ego. What? I'm sorry?
Pride.
Pride. Okay. Yeah, very close there. Very close. An ego and a prideful man is going to come to no good. Okay? What about the way we see things, the way we see people, the way we see jobs, the way we see money? Okay? Samson saw with what kind of eyes?
Lustful.
Lustful eyes. Pride absolutely was part of his downfall at this point in the story. Okay, lustful eyes. I like her. She looks good to me. Texas here about 30-something years ago and gave a very nice 3 or 4 day session for us. And I remember him talking about God's wisdom, wise or otherwise. And he talked about we're to pray for wisdom. And part of that is to see things as God sees them. And Samson is seeing things here as what? As a lustful young adult. Okay, let's just call it what it is. This can get in our way. He was young. We've got one young guest that we're pleased to have. As I say, most of us are his elders by a few years. But God never gives up on us, and Satan never gives up on us. And so we can be subject to the same pitfalls that the young Samson was. And we're going to see next week when David covers the next part of the story of Samson that it doesn't get any better. And so as we've seen a downward